Hello everyone. I am Hanan Al Musa from Palestinian Schools in Qatar. Today, inshallah, I am going to explain period 5 from unit 1, the present simple tense, page 8. Let's start. At the beginning of our lesson, I want to ask you some questions. What do you always do on Fridays? For example, I always read Quran. I always play computer games. Okay. Now, if I ask you, how often do you read Quran on Fridays? The answer is, I always read Quran. How often do you play computer games on Fridays? The answer is, I always play computer games. Okay, so what does it mean here, how often? It means how many times. We can call also always as what? As an adverb of frequency. I want you now to notice the verb after always. In the first sentence, the verb is read. And in the second sentence, the verb is play. So these verbs are in the present simple tense. And we can't add any additions to them because the subject here is I. So we put the verb in the present simple without any additions. I want you also to notice the place of always. Where is it? It comes before the main verb read and play. Okay. Now, look at the second question. What do they usually do in the mornings? Yes, they usually drink milk in the morning. I want you to notice the adverb of frequency usually. Where is it? Yes, we put it before the main verb drink. And also notice the verb drink. Does it have S, for example? No, it doesn't have. Why? What do you think about that? Yes, I want you to look at the subject they. If the subject is they, we don't put S to the verb because the verb here is in the present simple tense. Okay, how often do they drink milk? They usually drink milk in the mornings. So we use how often to tell us about how many times. Now look at the third question. What do we sometimes do on Sundays? We sometimes play tennis with our friends on Sundays. Now, how often do we play tennis with our friends? What is the answer? Yes, the answer is sometimes. So sometimes here is an adverb of frequency. We use it to refer to the present simple tense. And also sometimes comes before the main verb play. Notice the verb play. It comes without any addition also because of the subject we. All these sentences are positive without not. You know that the meaning of positive sentences, it means that the sentence is without not, okay? But how can we make these sentences as negative ones? Look at this sentence. Yes, they don't usually play football on Sundays. We make the sentences as negative by adding here what? By adding don't. We put don't because of the subject also. I want to look at the subject of all these sentences. So the subject here is what? The subject is they, so we can put don't, okay? So notice the main verb play here. It's also an infinitive verb. Notice the place also of the adverb of frequency, usually. Where is it? Also, it comes in the middle between the auxiliary verb don't and the main verb play. Now, can you name the adverbs of frequency? Do you remember them? Yes, look at this bubble. Let's read them together. Adverbs of frequency: always, usually, often, sometimes, and never. So we use the adverb of frequency to tell us about how often something happens in the present simple tense. Look at this bubble also. What does it mean, how often? It means how many times. Now let's read these sentences. Rania always reads Quran. Sama sometimes plays tennis with her friends on Sundays. Notice the adverbs of frequency in these two sentences. What are these? Yes, in the first sentence we have always, and in the second sentence we have sometimes. And we said that the adverbs of frequency tell us about how often something happens. Notice the verb here, the main verbs in these sentences. The main verb in the first sentence reads with S, reads with S. Why do you think that we add S here? Yes, because of the subject Rania. And the second one, why do you think that the main verb here plays with S? Also because of the subject Sama. Okay, so we can say that if the subject is Rania or Sama or any noun, any singular noun or she, we can say that we add to the verb what? We add to the verb S. Of course that these two sentences are positive ones. What about the negative one? Yes, the negative one is what? For example, Ali doesn't always play computer games. Okay, so here we have the auxiliary verb doesn't. Why do you use here doesn't? Yes, because of the subject also. The subject here is Ali. Because of that we put doesn't, not don't. And notice the main verb. The main verb here is infinitive one. So after doesn't and also don't, we can say after doesn't and don't we put an infinitive verb. Now I want you to notice the place of the adverbs of frequency. Of course that for the first two sentences we can say that we put the adverbs of frequency before the main verbs. But according to the negative sentence, Ali doesn't always play, we put the adverb of frequency in the middle between the auxiliary verb and the main verb. Okay, now look at these sentences also. She usually drinks milk in the mornings. He often goes to the library to read books. He never smokes. And also here I want you to notice the adverbs of frequency in these three sentences. What are these? Yes, we have usually, we have often, and never. And notice the verb after each one. We have drinks, goes, and smokes. And we put to each verb S. We add S to these verbs. Why do you think that we add S? Yes, because of the subject. The subject here is what? Is she. She drinks. And also the subject is he. He goes. He smokes. And don't forget that here we put the adverbs of frequency before the main verbs. And we can say that these adverbs of frequency, we use them to refer to the present simple tense. And we use them to talk about or to tell us about how often something happens. Okay, now look at these sentences. Ahmed is sometimes bored. Sarah is always happy. They aren't usually surprised. I am always happy when I go to school. Now notice here we don't have main verbs. We have verb to be. We have verbs to be. In the first sentence we have is from the verb to be. Okay? And also in the third sentence here we have they aren't usually. Aren't also is from the verb to be family. And also am is from the verb to be. So I want you to notice now the adverb of frequency. Where do you put it if you have a verb to be in the sentence? Look at these sentences. Yes, we put the adverb of frequency after the verb to be. So we say Ahmed is sometimes bored. Sarah is always. They aren't usually. I am always. Did you notice that? So if you have a verb to be, the adverb of frequency comes after the verb to be. Now look at the rule here. The present simple tense, he, if the subject is he or she or it or singular nouns, we put verb plus s. But if the subject is I, they, you, we we put a verb without S. Look at this bubble also. What are the verbs to be? Verbs to be family here is, am, are in the present, and also we have was and were in the past. Now let's read these rules. The negative form of the present simple tense, don't and doesn't. We use don't and doesn't. If the subject is I, they, you, we use don't. If the subject is he or she or it, we use doesn't. And notice that also after don't and doesn't we put infinitive verb. For example, we say don't drink, doesn't read. And here we have also how often means how many times. Now let's start with exercise 1. Read and think. Then choose the correct words to complete the rules. We have here some sentences. We are going to read them together, and I want you to notice the place of the adverbs of frequency to complete the rules. In some countries, people always kiss and hug their friends. I always look down at my feet. I usually smile when I meet new people. What do you usually do when you meet a friend? Young people don't often shake hands. I am often quiet when I meet new people. She sometimes hugs her friends. Do you sometimes shake hands with new people? I never smile. They aren't usually happy to meet new people. Now you have 2 rules that you are going to complete. I will give you 3 minutes to read them carefully and to complete them. Now let's see the answers. Number 1. We use always, usually, often, sometimes, and never to tell us how often something happens. Number 2. We put always, usually, often, sometimes, and never after am, are, is, am not, aren't, isn't, but you put them before other verbs. Check your answers. Exercise 2. Put the words in brackets in the correct place. In this exercise, we have 5 sentences, and in the brackets we have adverbs of frequency. You are going to write the sentences again and to put the adverbs of frequency in the correct place. I will give you 5 minutes to do this exercise. Now let's read the answers together. Number 1. I always smile when I meet a new classmate. Number 2. He sometimes meets Amir near the market. Number 3. He doesn't often win at football. Number 4. He is never bored. Number 5. We aren't usually surprised. Check your answers, please. Now exercise 3. In this exercise you have 2 columns. The first one, you have some jumbled words that you are going to order them to make questions. And in the second one, you have some jumbled words you are going to order them to make answers. Then you are going to match the questions with the correct answers. Let's read the title of the question. Number 3. Put the words in the correct order to make questions and answers. Then match the questions and answers. I will give you 5 minutes to do this exercise. Now let's read the answers. Number 1. Do you often go to the beach? No, I never go there. It goes with answer C. Number 2. Do you often see your cousin? Yes, I always stay with him in the summer. It goes with answer A. Number 3. How do you usually go to school? I usually go by bus. It goes with answer B. Check your answers. At the end of our lesson, let's read the grammar box. Adverbs of frequency. We use always, usually, often, sometimes, and never to tell us how often. We put them before most verbs, but after am, are, is, am not, aren't, isn't. Thank you for listening. I hope you have understood the lesson.